I recently finished playing Sigil of the Fallen, the latest Skyrim creation from the team at KingGath. Today I'm giving my full review, which comes after having completed a full playthrough. Link on screen to that, in case you want to see it. For some of the bigger creations like this one, I'll be doing these standalone video reviews, which will hopefully let people avoid spoilers a little bit more easily. I will have a spoiler mark section a little later on in the video, which is in part due to how story-driven this creation is. But between the chapter markers and a few warnings, you should be able to skip over that easily enough. Just keep in mind that I will be going over the basic premise for the story, so if you consider that to be spoilers, this might not be the video for you. Before we get into the review, let's take a look at just some basic info for this. Sigil of the Fallen comes in at 1,000 credits, approximately $10 USD. It's available for PC and Xbox systems, and comes in at under a gigabyte in size. I did receive a copy for free from KingGath, which was used for both the playthrough and this review. My full playthrough took a total of 12 hours, which included the main quests, side quests, and one of the new radiants, which are completely optional. This also includes me completing the 3 main endings for the creation. I consider this to be the most narratively driven and the most story-focused of KingGath's works, and that's something that kept me really engaged. The story feels a bit like a mystery at times, and it's very character-driven. The premise of the creation is fairly straightforward. You find a new cave in the Reach called the Soul Sanctum. Upon entering, you unintentionally break things, as player characters tend to do. You're then tasked with capturing some released spirits, the 3 main ones embodying the archetypes of the warrior, mage, and thief. The order in which you complete these 3 is completely up to you, and is something that adds to the replayability, as you'll get some different dialogue based on that order. To track down these spirits, you'll gain a new follower, known simply as the Spirit Guide. As you capture the 3 heroes, your guide will gain the ability to take on their form. The idea here being that you get a 4-in-1 follower type. To me, KingGath is best known for their gameplay innovations, and it's something that Sigil does pretty well. Each of these heroes has their own unique gear, an item for which they were best known for in life. As you complete each of the quests, you'll unlock their artifact, the mages being a staff called the Scepter of Infinite Chorus, which when charged creates magical motes that will be fired off at wherever you're aiming, and explode. This works great against enemies, but is also required for some puzzle doors. The warrior's unique shield, Oblivion's Wall, allows you to knock back enemies, and can break down specifically marked items, such as walls and pillars. Finally, there's the thief's unique mace, the Gentleman's Cudgel, which comes with a unique ability where doing a standing power attack will have you blink forward to wherever you're aiming, and then do a quick power attack before teleporting back. Doing a backwards power attack will instead pull your target towards you. The mace is used for navigating traps and activating some new items. All 3 of these items are a lot of fun to use, and I love that they have a dual purpose, as they'll be required to complete the associated dungeons, but also have great combat abilities outside of that. Visually, I think they're great, and in terms of balancing, I think they managed to make them powerful without feeling overpowered. The dungeons associated with these heroes really highlight the artifact's abilities, with each of these main dungeons feeling fairly unique. There is, of course, a bit more to the creation than just the artifacts themselves. There's some really cool memory sequences, in which you get to learn more about the heroes, along with some new side quests from your guide. A lot of this is optional though, and if you want to, you could probably skip over a lot of it. Although I would recommend doing just about everything that you can. I would say that everything in the creation felt important and was really worth doing. The only exception there being the Radiant quests, but they do serve a purpose in being a way to get ectoplasm, which is a required ingredient for the creation's progression system. After gathering any of the hero's spirits, you'll unlock a leveling wall, from which you can then unlock new perks and abilities for your spirit guide. Ectoplasm is used here in place of skill points, and the creation does provide ample opportunities to gather it. I will say that I found the Thief's perk tree to be the most interesting and the most useful, as they provide some player buffs and synergies. I went back and forth on this review a couple times, because I think Sigil of the Fallen has some really good high points, but at the same time, I think it could have been a little more. I really enjoyed it, but when I finished it, I was left a little surprised that it was already over, with the ending in particular feeling a bit rushed and even a little underwhelming. To start, Let me just say that on a technical level, this was incredibly impressive. This was one of the most cinematic experiences that I've ever had in a Skyrim mod, especially with the memory sequences and these cutscene-esque moments. They spent a lot of time on really cool set pieces, including these floating clutter items that can be knocked around. They really feel like they're aiming for a visually focused experience. Gameplay-wise, they did some really cool things with the artifacts, and the dungeons revolving around them were really creative. And I think they put a good amount of emphasis on the mechanics behind each of the artifacts. There was one point where I felt a little stuck during the dungeon associated with the mage, but I was able to figure it out after just a little bit of trial and error. I personally found the Warriors dungeon to be a little long for my liking, and even though I enjoyed the mechanics, it eventually started to drag a bit. Granted, they do provide a bit of a stopping point halfway through, giving you an exit point along with a map marker in case you want to take a break and come back later. But I personally felt that the dungeon could have been a bit condensed and not have lost anything for it. If anything, I actually found that the sheer amount of traps used in the Warriors dungeon detracted a bit from the thieves, as one of the main hooks for that was navigating and disabling traps. Just about all the boss battles in the creation were really well done, and I was warned that they were aiming for a more challenging experience. Having played this on a higher level character, I didn't have too much trouble, but I did find the mechanics to be really fun, and overall, really intuitive. The only downside to me was that we didn't use the artifact mechanics in the final dungeon, save for one minor side passage. And the artifacts really weren't required for the final boss either. With how much emphasis was placed on their abilities a little earlier on, I was hoping to see them used a bit more towards the end. One thing the creation adds is a new world encounter of sorts, in which lesser spirits have taken over objects across the world. This can be chests, chairs, and even NPCs, which you'll be able to tell from a bit of a ghostly glow around them. Interacting with or striking these objects will release the spirit, allowing you to kill them for ectoplasm. There is a raiding quest associated with these, in which you can kill a designated spirit. It's a cool idea and a fun addition, but my main concern is that it's something that persists for the rest of the game. Almost wish there was a way to stop the spirits from taking over items upon completing the main quest, or if it were limited to just the raiding quest specifically. My concern is that it's trying to insert itself too much into the rest of the game and the world space. That being said, there are plans for an update where you'll be able to more easily toggle these on and off. Writing-wise, I think there's some really strong moments here, especially when it comes to the character writing. At the same time, my biggest critique would be the overall pacing and structure of the story, most notably in regards to the final quest, and just how short-lived it feels, with the final plot point in particular feeling a little disconnected for me. I'll get into more details on that in the spoiler section. One thing that really helps to make the experience is the voice acting. Frankly, there's not a single bad performance to be found in this. I'll include some clips so you can hear it for yourself.
In life, they were honored, revered, even feared. Yet in death, they sought purpose far grander still.
I invite you into my memories, but tread lightly. I will not abide any impudence.
No, I worked in the field, unearthing ancient relics, discovering lost ruins. They had to rewrite entire regional maps. Such were my contributions.
My favorite part of this creation was the characters, specifically the three heroes. Chasing after them, gathering their artifacts, using them as part of these puzzle-focused dungeons. That's the highlight for me. The writing for the heroes was phenomenal. I've already mentioned that the memory sequences impressed me on a technical level, but in terms of writing, they wound up being some of my favorite parts of this experience. When I first talked to KingGath about Sigil, he said that at its core, the creation was meant to be a follower experience. The spirit guide is a central part of the creation, and you'll need her, as well as the form she can take, in order to complete the main quest line. Personally, the guide doesn't feel much like a permanent companion to me, and feels more like one that works best as being part of the quest and its story. Honestly, it might literally just be that they're a ghost and that I'm getting a bit of a Katria vibe from the Dawnguard Ethereum quest. I've found the interactions with the guide to be really interesting, and I loved having some quests for them in which we got to learn more about them. Having them take on the form of these heroes that we gathered was really inventive. and each of those heroes has a lot to say, including commentary on the base game's main story, guilds, and so on, so there's a good amount of dialogue for them. And adding onto the comments from KingGath himself, he did say that the team went with a different approach than usual with this. Instead of going super deep into new gameplay systems, they went deeper with the story, as well as the production value for these quest moments. I'm just wondering if maybe this needed some more time. Maybe to have the overarching questline feel a bit more central and connected to the really good character stories that we got. Now, I'm gonna jump into some spoiler talk. This is mainly gonna be for the people who have already played and might want to hear my thoughts on the story specifically. If you're avoiding spoilers like this, check the chapter markers in order to jump ahead to the next section. There's no way to talk about the ending to this other than saying that I felt a bit underwhelmed. And I get that they were trying to build up to the Dremora as the bad guy. They pointed us to the cave, they were watching us through the memory sequences, but even still, their reveal after making the decision between helping Air, the founders, or ourselves felt weirdly tacked on. To me, they didn't really feel like a part of the existing story. I think it could have helped had there been more of them after that reveal. Maybe another quest or two before we got to that final boss fight. But even then, a lot of it still feels anticlimactic. I thought the Sigil Guardian would be our final boss, just because of the rule of cool. Having a new model and texture, being this ominous being that we've been dealing with since the beginning. By comparison, having a Dremora in what's essentially vanilla Daedric armor doesn't have the same gravity as a final boss. I thought the idea behind their boss battle was fun, having to swap the guide to the needed hero in order to deal damage to them at each stage. But I found that the fight went by way too quickly for me, especially since I had the bonus of the actual heroes showing up since I had completed their personal quests. I barely had to do anything for the final boss fight because of it. I wonder if it might have worked better had each stage been a new environment. When the Dremora glows blue, we could fight through the mage's memory and summon her. When they're red, we go into the warrior's memory. You get where I'm going with that. Like I said, it just all felt very short-lived. It's unfortunate, because I really enjoyed just about everything else with the creation. It just felt like such an odd note to end on. Now, getting into some more positive spoiler talk. I really came to like each of the heroes for different reasons, and their memories and their personal quests were a big part of that. Alicia being the way she is makes so much sense when you interact with her mother more. Malgrak is almost overcompensating because he was the runt growing up and no one thought anything of him. I said it way too many times in my playthrough, but Laughs at Locks was my personal favorite. He really seemed the most humble of the group. And to me, he was the most interesting, because he's the one who sought out the Sigil Geode and knew of its existence, unlike the others. I almost wish that their memories included something more about the artifacts. We know that Alicia and Laughs at Locks created theirs, but I don't remember hearing anything about the origin for Oblivion's Wall. Honestly, I assumed it was going to be some minor Daedric artifact that we'd learn more about. To those avoiding spoilers, welcome back. In the end, I do find myself a bit mixed on the creation as a whole, even if a lot of that just comes from the ending. But in a story-focused experience, that can sometimes be all it takes to take you out of it. But aside from the ending, I was really happy. The creation has some great writing, some fun mechanics, gear that I truly enjoyed using. There's a new soundtrack that complements the new areas. The new assets here look fantastic. The bugs I encountered were super minor and are already being looked into. Compatibility-wise, this really shouldn't conflict with much at all. The one thing I will say is that the story structure might not be for everyone. This is a very dialogue-focused questline. I'd say there might even be more dialogue than gameplay. And for me, that's fine. I love a good story. I love a lot of dialogue. But you will have times where you'll be in dialogue for a good 20 plus minutes straight, which is admittedly more than you'll see in vanilla Skyrim. At some point, I'll definitely want to play this again. I'd want to go through these quests in a different order. I'd maybe want to try this on a lower level character in order to get a bit more of a challenge. This isn't going to be my favorite of KingGath's creations, but at the end of the day, it's still better than most of the creations out there. For my free alternative mods today, I'm giving two. One that gives much more of that character-focused approach that Sigil has, and another that has more of the emphasis on unique boss fights. My first recommendation is interesting NPCs, which to me is the apex of character-focused story mods. This adds over 50 new quests, 250 newly voiced characters, and numerous followers. The quests here tend to rely much more on character interactions, and it's a very narratively focused mod. And if you're playing this, I recommend checking the wiki, which shows a full list of quests and their requirements. For a more boss and mechanics focused mod, I'd recommend the Grand Paladin by Kittytail, although most of their quest mods would be a good fit too. I will warn that these mods are designed with an endgame build in mind, so they will be much more challenging than something like Sigil of the Fallen. But if you're looking for challenging, boss-oriented gameplay, I think Kittytail has some really good ones in their catalog. But that's gonna be all for today. As always, thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, check out the Patreon or the YouTube memberships, both of which get early access to most new videos, such as this one, as well as access to the Discord server. And if you'd like to see me play something other than Skyrim, make sure to check out the streams at twitch.tv/0periodproductions. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.